create space, go on a walk, go in nature, go jump in the ocean, go in the mountains, and just quiet all the noise, sit with yourself, feel all the feelings. And that is going to create space where then wisdom can come, whether an inner voice or whether it's some miraculous encounter with the right healer or the person that is like, but if we're overstimulated, if we're in this fear loop, and if we're surrounded by people that are just pouring gasoline on our fear, we're not going to be open to that guidance. But I trust ultimately that guidance is always there. We just have to get still, quiet, and create space in order to welcome it in.
Hey, Guy here. Today, I welcome back to the podcast the beautiful Kelly Noonan Gores. And she, if you're unfamiliar with her work, she is she created the documentary Heal, which had a lot of success back in when it came out in 2018 and still does to this day. Today, though, I don't dive so much into how she made the documentary and that. If you want to listen to that, you can go back to the first episode I did with Kelly quite a number of years ago now. But today we dive into her personal journey, her spiritual beliefs, and her experience with ayahuasca as well, which I was very keen to dive into, and what the pros and cons of doing something like that as well, and how that's impacted her as well. And of course, we touch on heal and what the definition of heal truly means. This was a great conversation. I love my time with Kelly today, and I have no doubt you'll get a lot out of it too. We also touch on parenting, which of course we're both parents of young children. Anyway, if you enjoy the show, of course, please let me know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or share this with a loved one, a friend, on iTunes, Spotify. Any way to continue to support the show and get it out there is always deeply appreciated, as I feel this information is critical in today's day and age. And of course, if you want to learn more about Live in Flow and what we're up to, all the links are below, and you can even start with our free meditations from there. Let's go over to Kelly. This is a beautiful conversation. Enjoy. Kelly, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to see you again.
Yeah, like we were just speaking off air. I've been, it's peculiar of social media, isn't it? And podcasts and audio, because you really feel like you get to know people, and yet you've only spent minimal time with them. And I know I get that from this end in Australia too. So yeah, I've been listening to you from afar and watching you for a long time, and feel like I'm getting to know you, and just wanted to reach out and get you back on to explore a little bit deeper on your own journey, because I feel there's so much to share.
Yeah,
so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, Kelly, on your journey, because obviously you're out there, you're vocal, you speak a lot about wellness in general and the things that you learn. And there's definitely a fire and a passion that's driving that. And have you always been that way? Have you always had spiritual practices or a spiritual backbone to your life, or is it something that kind of evolved? Were you raised that way?
No, I was raised, I'm a recovering Catholic. Both sides, both parents are Catholic, and my grandparents were, big churchgoers, and my brother was an altar boy. So, but I always had this sense, like growing up, I was like, I'm so into the parables and Jesus's history and story as a man and his abilities to lead and do things. But then there was just something that didn't resonate about the whole fear tradition. There's just something that didn't resonate. So when I was about to get confirmed, which I think you do around 13, 14, maybe 12, I asked my parents, I was like, I kind of feel like if I'm going to, promise my life over to Christ, like I should explore other religions to like make sure that I'm picking the right one, So I didn't end up getting confirmed. It was probably just honestly like a teenage thing to get out of something I had to do. But I like to think I was very enlightened back then. But I was interested in like theology, and I had this sense that all religions were basically like fundamentally the same. From the little I knew, and they was just dressed in different cultural clothing. Mm-hmm. So interestingly enough, after that, I was kind of like, I don't really believe in God. I was questioning the existence of God or any sort of power beyond ourselves. In high school, I felt it was very cause and effect existence. And then I went to Berkeley, my first 2 years of university, and I think I experienced like depression for the first time. And but I didn't know. I mean, there was no label back then for what I was feeling. I was just like kind of angry and angsty and and I thought it was just a weather thing because it's really gloomy up in Northern California on the East Bay, and I'm from sunny Southern California. But really, what I learned in hindsight is that it was because I didn't have a belief, a faith, a belief in something or an awareness of something bigger than me. I felt very small and disconnected and meaningless, and during that time, I transferred schools and had some time off, and I actually traveled with my brother to Australia. And this lifeguard from Manly Beach gave me the book Return to Love by Marianne Williamson when I was 19 years old. And I read it on the way home, on the plane ride home, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is God to me. It resonated so deeply that we can create heaven on earth if we come from love, and that's what God is. That's what source energy is. But most of us have this, muddied perception, and we come from fear. So that's kind of what started me on my real spiritual path.
Fascinating that the lifeguard from Manly, of all people, give you that book.
Oh, no. I thought it was a nice little Aussie anecdote there.
Yeah, totally. I hear you. I feel you, because I was in the same boat through my entire 20s, though. It wasn't until I hit my 30s where things started to light up for me, and really start to question the bigger picture. From that experience and reading that book, then, what I'm fascinated to know is because we lead it, when we read a text or a book or start to have experiences, we tend to intellectualize them all at first. That's what I found. It wasn't an embodied, true faith connection experience.
Totally.
When did that start to occur for you then, or what were the breadcrumbs that allowed you to really continue to lean in to have deeper experiences with that, and I guess nurture the beliefs that we kind of live with now?
Yeah, I think, like anything, it's peaks and valleys. So that book kind of like opened me up. And then, college life got in the way, and I was acting. I was an actor, and it's a real struggle when you're blonde haired, blue eyed, and you're like one of 5 million that are like you competing for a job. And, but I'd acted my whole life, and it was something that I felt, there was a lot of growth in it, but I felt that I wanted it at the time to be a career in acting. And then I dated this guy that was like the quintessential bad boy with tattoos and long hair, Harley Davidson riding, drug user, drug seller, like my mom's worst nightmare. And so but he was very spiritual. Like he had like the Upanishads in the back of his toilet and dancing Wooly masters. So I was like, oh, this guy's so connected, So interesting. But I didn't really like have a practice or anything. It was just like surviving in this, like, your mid 20s, you're just like surviving. And after I broke up with him, I came back to LA and I started going to Agape, which is Michael Beckwith's spiritual center. And it was the first kind of, church group. They call it a trans-denominational church group because it reads scripture from every religion. If you look around, it's just like this beautiful rainbow of culture. It's like a microcosm of the globe. And the energy in the space and what, the field that Michael created with his word, with his teaching, with his channeling, was what just like totally felt like home, like truth and love and expansion and high vibration. Like you left just like high, on the good stuff. And so I started meditating around that time. And that's when, so I was probably like 28, a real practice and a real embodiment started.
Wow. I had no idea you went to Agape, because my business partner, Matt, who I run the retreats and workshops with over here, he studied under Michael back in 2003.
Yeah.
Because he's American. And I've had Michael on the podcast, and he's Yeah, what a beautiful soul. What an experience. I would love to go to Agape and experience that. That's
It's
incredible.
wonderful. Yeah.
No
It's
wonder, yeah. Certainly didn't get that in Wales growing up, that's for sure.
great.
So once you started leaning into that, I'm curious as well, because I know you've lent into, correct me if I'm wrong, plant-based medicines as well
Mhm.
in time, which was something that opened me up completely. And did all this come before when you created the documentary Heal, or did this come afterward? What happened?
Yeah, with like the plant-based medicine or the
Yeah, yeah,
plant
I'm
medicine.
fascinated. Yeah.
Yeah, it was after. It was, yeah, I didn't have any. Heal was such a calling, and it was like I'd go to the Agape bookstore and I'd pick up a book by Bruce Lipton, and you're just reading and
Wow.
learning, and I would be training for marathons, and I'd be running for 2 hours at a time and listening to Abraham Hicks, or driving to auditions in an hour of traffic and listening to Wayne Dyer or Eckhart Tolle, and just like infiltrating, consuming that content in my brain, and just which it just helped me navigate a career of constant rejection and LA stresses of the high paced life, fast paced life. So I felt this calling to do Heal, and then as I was doing it, you just meet different people, and then I had a facialist who had kind of apprenticed for this shaman and had done like ayahuasca, like 200 ceremonies over the last 5 years, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And so I was intrigued, but I wasn't ready until like a year later, maybe a year and a half later. And then once I like decide to do something, I'm kind of that Aries that just like leaps and jumps. Like I'll try anything, apart from something that's like really dark. So I did ayahuasca. I did it in the absolute wrong setting. I did it in a first floor condo in Century City, like with a group of people I did not know. There was no instruction or kind of guide plan for the ceremony laid out ahead of time, which I think is really important. And there was no kind of interaction with the shaman beforehand, so I didn't know. I was just going on the trust of my other friend. And I was just like, whoa, it was super aggressive. It was like a full battle with myself. And I got two really massive insights out of it, but it was like a war for,
Wow.
6 hours with myself. And I woke up, I got out of the ceremony. I was like, that is not my medicine. And then interestingly enough, as the universe would have it, and I didn't judge it. I was just like, that I think just for different people and different souls who are different sensitivity levels, they require and resonate with different medicines. And I still believe that. So I was like, okay, that's a bit aggressive, like not my jam. And then because of Heal came out, and Michael is part of this center called Rhythmia in Costa Rica. And so and I knew the girlfriend, the wife at the time of the founder. And so they invited me down there to speak. And they're like, come down, hang out for a week. So I was looking at the calendar, and I didn't know that all they offered was plant journeys. Like it was 4 days of ayahuasca, which again, like one day was too aggressive for me. So like 4, like forget it. So I looked at the calendar, and I saw a week that combined breath work and ayahuasca. I was like, great, I'll just do breath work because that's some of the most transformative work I've ever done, really, with my own instrument. And I'll go down, they'll show Heal. I brought my best friend who's never done a drug in her life, apart from like smoking weed once in high school. And so she was like very clear, like there's no way in hell I'm doing ayahuasca, and I was like, don't worry, like me either, I'm good. So we go down there, we do breath work on the first night, and my best friend has this like transcendent experience. I mean, she has visions, she sees stuff. She like left, like we went back to the hotel room, and she was just like mind blown. And then she's like, I don't know, maybe we should do the ayahuasca. And I was like, who are you? I've known this girl since we were 10 years old. We're best friends. She's my sister. And it was I would have bet $1 million those words would never come out of her mouth. So anyways, long story short, we go to the informational meeting. They totally lay out this roadmap, what the journey's going to be like, what the week is going to be like. And we both I just felt so much more comfortable. And I was like, look, if my best friend, who's never done anything like this, is willing to try, then I need to be there to kind of shepherd her and make sure she's fine, because I know that it could be intense. So I talked to Michael Beckwith's assistant, who's very gentle, and she's a yoga teacher. And I said, have you, you've been to Rhythmia, have you done that's like intense? She's like, it took me 13 times teaching yoga down there before I decided to do the plant medicine.
Wow.
And she said, just set an intention for a gentle experience, and, and we'll check on you. You're gonna be fine. So I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. You can set your intention and really frame your experience. So I set that intention. It was so profound. I got what I needed in one day, which there was these 3 steps you go through. And I went through all of them in the one ceremony. So then after that, we kind of went off and did our own thing. But it was I understood why the first ceremony was the way it was. It was just so profound. And yeah, and I actually I learned later, I came home and 2 weeks later found out I was pregnant. So I had conceived my child 2 days prior to going to Costa Rica. So I was like, is that good for the baby? But I guess it's pretty, it's like a sacred thing in Native cultures.
Totally.
To be on a journey like that, pregnant. So it was really magical. And then, I've gone on to do a few more things, but yeah.
Wow. Well, I feel you when you say leaning into that second time, the courage to do that is I think immense, because when I did it, I've only done it once, and my whole body thought I was going to die. I was that terrified before I went to drink the medicine, because I'd had a bad experience when I was a kid. I was eating mushrooms and I didn't even know what I was doing, and spent as a 13-year-old tripping my balls off, not wondering what the hell was going on. So I kind of never touched anything ever since, and that was my reinitiation back into it.
Wow.
And so I hear you, to lean into that. What was the lessons you've learned from that then? How would you describe it when people ask you, what was your experience like? What do you do? How do you find words? Did you have a transcendental experience, or was it just an inner kind of inward exploration?
Yeah, mine was very inward. The roadmap that they lay out is there's going to be 3 things that you find out, have a conversation with Mother Ayahuasca. And what I truly believe is that the medicine gives you what you need, right? Mm. And I also have talked to, I have this, amazing group of healers I work with, just different, and there's a few women who can't work with people that have done a lot of plant medicine, because it's like a sacred thing. And if you do it too much, almost in an addictive way, which can happen because you learn so many profound insights about yourself, you want more. But what I found and what I've learned from these kind of master healers that literally turn people down because they've opened too many portals. I can't work with that energy anymore. So I'm very respectful of the medicine. I have learned how deeply wise ayahuasca, I think, is a master teacher plant. Iboga, which I have not done, but I've just involved in a documentary because it's got tremendous transformative healing powers for opioid addiction and PTSD and in servicemen and women. So the wisdom of nature and these plants and what have been practiced. I mean, the plants really do give you what you need and what you can handle. So that to me is so fascinating, but to be respected, and not to be abused, because like anything else, there's just personalities that want more and more and more. And it's it may take a year to integrate one session. It may take a month, everybody's different, and I'm not, judging anyone who does many things, but it's just definitely to be respected. But I am in awe of the wisdom that these plants can give someone in healing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So, looking back then through these experiences, when you leaned in to make the documentary Heal, was it inspired by Kelly Turner's book? Am I
It
kind of?
Yeah, so radical remission, I'm like just a massive fan of possibility. So all these teachers that I
Mm,
was reading, Abraham Hicks and Bruce Lipton, who, when I read The Biology of Belief, um, I learned that we're not victims of our genes, but epigenetics, our beliefs and our lifestyle choices actually turn on and off genes like switches. So that
yeah,
our genes are just a blueprint. We have so much more power over our life and our, experience and expression than we've kind of been taught or led to believe. So that was one of the books. Kelly Turner's book for sure, Radical Remission, because, she did actual scientific research on all different types and stages of cancer, and people healed from every one. And I was like, that's possibility, and if it's possible for one, it's possible for all in just in reality. And then of course there's karma and destiny and, souls contracts and all these things that play a role. But and then the final kind of straw, as I was like just marinating and like feeling called to do this film, was reading Anita Morjani's book, Dying to Be
of
Me,
course. Yeah,
because she, to me, is the ultimate poster child of what's possible, because her physical body was so far gone that not a human on the planet would think that she'd be able to recover. And, with a change in
yeah,
consciousness from a near death experience, she healed within 3 weeks.
yeah. And she's a beautiful soul. She's so sweet. She's
Yeah.
so sweet. Yeah. So, when the documentary come out to where we are now in 2023, when did it come out?
Yeah,
2017?
2017, December. So really 2018.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
there's been a good 5 years under the bridge, 5.5 years. Do you feel humanity is changing on a whole and this work is getting more accepted? Or do you think there's a shift in consciousness that's making more people hungry?
Totally. It's wild to me. Um, I'd been thinking about doing it 8 years, prior. Then when it came out, I was like, oh, this is
Wow.
perfect timing. We were too early back then. Now it's perfect timing. And then it turned out like, and then Netflix released it a year later after. So it's kind of just on Apple and um, VOD for the first year. And it was like doing amazing and all over the world, but it was to the audience that was already ripe for the stuff. Then it hit Netflix and it kind of got a little broader, to people that were kind of interested but not really familiar with all these teachers. And then COVID hit, and then it became, people were just passing it around like, this will help you, with dealing with your fear and anything else that you're dealing with physically and mentally. So for sure, there's a shift in consciousness. I think, the mental health aspect right now is, I think mental health is just on a downward spiral. So any tools that are empowering for people is what we need right now. They're what we
Yeah.
need. So
What do you? I heard Gabor Mate speak recently, and he spoke about, and I feel it's obvious that we kind of separate the physical in the medical system to the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. It's kind of like, and we just fixate on the mechanical aspects of symptoms that arise, but could have been, when it turns up on pathology, it could have spent 30 years brewing for it to be actually seen. And
mhm,
then we just address that, right?
right.
But when we're leaning into this work the first time, and you must have people coming up to you all the time asking questions and talking about this, but when you look at and I hate the word alternative,
Mhm,
but when you look at the industry in general, there are so many modalities, there are so many things we can lean into. It can be overwhelming and
mhm.
confusing. And what have you learned that I think that would help people listening to this that we should kind of focus on? Because obviously we're all individual souls, we all have different diagnosis, but how do we create a roadmap for ourselves, if you like, to get back to which bits do we focus on Is it the
Yeah.
spiritual? Is it the physical? Is it the emotional? Is it the or how do we do all? Like it quickly feels like I want the ground to open up and swallow me because I don't know.
Yeah, it's so overwhelming. And then, of course, if you get a diagnosis, then you're just in fight or flight. You're in
Mm,
panic. And so your aperture just closes and you can't, all of a sudden you're blocking out potentials and information and people helping, because when you're in panic, just everything just kind of narrows. So, I mean, to me, it always comes back to spiritual. Like, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I fully believe that. And so any practice that can, cut out the outside noise and reconnect us with ourself, and that's, meditation, prayer, being silent in nature, and just we're so overstimulated with social media and 24-hour news cycle, which is all negative, that we're not giving ourselves space for inspiration, for truth, for divine wisdom, for guidance. And I believe that when we, first step is to just, like, cancer, does not develop overnight. And I see cancer like sprouting up. You always have time, and the like you said, Western medicine tends to pour gasoline on your fear, because they're like, we got to do this now because it's got to spread, and you got to go into chemo and radiation on Monday and it's Friday. So I always kind of encourage people to just, like, take some time to get still and be quiet and grieve, if it's like a diagnosis like that, and move the energy, move the emotions, and create space. Go on a walk, go in nature, go jump in the ocean, go in the mountains, and just quiet all the noise, sit with yourself, feel all the feelings. And that is going to create space where then wisdom can come, whether an inner voice or whether it's some miraculous encounter with the right healer or the person that is like, but if we're overstimulated, if we're in this fear loop, and if we're surrounded by people that are just pouring gasoline on our fear, we're not going to be open to that guidance. But I trust ultimately that guidance is always there. We just have to get still, quiet, and create space in order to welcome it in.
yeah, and then you're sparking more questions. I feel, like, because then how do we then develop that trust to that guidance to know that we are spiritual light beings in a human experience? Because on my journey, I kind of was leaning in, but I just felt frustrated. It wasn't making sense. Even after my ayahuasca journey, I had an experience, but it's like, was that the medicine? Was that, oh, was that real? Does it, it was so profound. And then I had a Kundalini awakening in 2015, which really went, oh, just from meditation. And that's what really tipped the scales for me, because I had an embodied experience.
Yeah.
I was like, that's what all the books mean. That's what everyone is saying. Now I get it.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
found myself fortunate to have that. But if we don't, it's like we're flying blind.
Mm-hmm. I know. That's like, Anita Morjani had a near death experience. So how do we access that shift in consciousness without, almost dying,
Dying. Yeah.
um, or dying? So I agree. And I think it's just really being, yeah, I mean, it's faith, right? I can only speak to people that have faith in some sort of experience or touch with something, bigger than us. And, like Anita and many others that have had near death experience, they all describe this going to this place out of their physical body where they just feel connected to everything. There's a kind of an all knowing awareness. There's a peace that passes human understanding, and a love that is so warm and indescribable and, like, big that there's not even a word to describe it. And so when I hear those stories, and when so many stories line up, it's just like, it resonates with me. So I believe it. So I think it's important to A, have your practice, and B, just constantly consume content that resonates with you, and it might be about aliens or the Pleiades or whatever it is for you. If it resonates and gives you something bigger to believe in, again, I just feel like you set yourself up to be on a frequency that's going to bring you the answers to what you need, and it's trial and error, but it's also, it's a path, it's a growth, it's a journey, it's an unfoldment. Like you were like frustrated, and I believe that that's all part of it. It's not, I'm constantly questioning, like, we're all searching for this like happiness. We don't want to be challenged. We want everything to come easy. But like, honestly, if everything was easy, we would be miserable too. You know what I mean? So it's just really becoming okay with what is, and knowing that the challenges and the triggers and these people that you just like wish would be removed from your life, they're actually the friction that you need to polish the stone that's going to be your greatest unfoldment,
Yeah, 1,000%.
In our resistance. It's in our resistance of all of those things where we get in trouble. We suffer.
Totally. Yeah, no, I hear you. So with the leaning into your practices and what you do, with the movie coming out in 2017 to Kelly of 2023, and we're always changing and evolving, how much would you change anything the way you did Heal at the time to like if you redid it now? Or how much of your beliefs continue to change from that time? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, there's always, I wouldn't change anything, as I'm kind of like one of those people that like doesn't look back, and like, I almost don't want to look back because I will find things to nitpick and regret, So, but I mean, just the feedback that I get, it's like, it was perfect for what it needed to be,
1,000%. Yeah.
And of course, there were so many things I could improve, but it was where I was at the time. And I feel like it was exactly what it should have been. So a lot of people ask me, are you going to do a Heal 2? And that to me feels overwhelming because I've met so many people in this world. Like, I wouldn't even know where to begin and who to put in it, But yeah. And then it's interesting. I feel like, so right after Heal, the DVD publisher who also did The Secret, they said, wow, this film is really reminding us of how well it was, The Secret was received. And, right after it came out, we told Rhonda Byrne to write the book. And she wrote it in like 6 weeks or something. And so they told me to start writing the book. And I was like 6 weeks. It took me like months and months and months. And so at like 6 months later, I was going to take September off and finish the book. And then I got pregnant in the beginning of September, and I was nauseous, like sick for 3 months. And so the book kind of got delayed. All of that to say, I struggled to finish the book because, all of my creative juices were in the uterus. But I was really just curating experts, knowledge and wisdom. So it wasn't that hard. And released the book. Then I did promotion I was like, okay, I'm going to do promotion for the book with a newborn for 2 months. And then I'm fried. Like, the creative output for the film, the book, and the baby, I was just taxed. And then, so I did promotion through January of 2020, and then COVID hit. And I was like, wow, I really manifested this whole, pause thing. And then, of course, because of the nature of the pandemic, I felt like, Heal needed to get in the conversation and help share wisdom and abate fear and reboost our confidence in our immune systems, and et cetera, et cetera. So then I started the podcast. So all of that to say, I kind of took last year off because I was a true burnout. And then in January of this year, I was like, whoo, I kind of woke up to, and 2022, even though I took it off, was kind of one of the most intense, stressful, toxic years of my life, just peripherally with stuff going on. And so January of this year, the last 5 months, I've just been on this insane, putting me first, self-care, express lane of healing, and it feels like I'm finally getting my energy, creativity, inspiration back, but it's a lot.
Yeah. Wow. I
Yeah.
remember. I can't remember who it was. I was chatting to on a podcast. Um, but he said, "Yeah, you got to be careful. All this wellness is making me sick," and it really
Beautiful.
stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, really stood out for me at the time. It's like, wow, burnout. What are the lessons you have learned then, and how do you manage that moving forward? Because it's challenging. Like I'm finding it a delicate because I have a daughter, 3 years old. She's about to be three. Um, we are running workshops almost once a fortnight at the moment. Just to give you an example, we were in a little country town called Thurul, and we had to put sold out in it 2 weeks prior because we didn't have enough space. Like we had nearly 100 people turn up just in
Great.
one event. It's like, wow, like it's hungry, and you get excited because you really have a message to share to help people find their own wisdom within themselves.
Yeah.
But it's hard work.
It's hard work. And I think that, and your intention is so pure. I think there's a lot of, I can tell your intention and heart are pure. So it's just about just staying in tune with your body and knowing when and trusting, again, having faith
Trusting.
that if you take 2 months off or 3 months off of workshops, that you'll be fine, abundance and finance wise, and because I just feel like when you take steps and have the intention of taking care of yourself and being aware of when you're getting burnt out, and having that awareness, like, I want to serve, I'm here to serve, but I'm not serving, I'm not my best. And they deserve my best.
Mm.
So it takes time and it takes practice, and I'm preaching here, but I'm not perfect at it by any means. But it's that dance of really, really being intimately connected to yourself, and being aware of, like, when fear is hooking you, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm exhausted, but I have to show up to this event, or I'm exhausted, but, and just learning that balance and that flow, which is the name of your podcast, Live and Flow, to have that dance of, like, taking care of yourself in such a way that you can show up and take care of others in a bigger way, but maybe less often. And right now I'm learning, like, I'm going through all of these intense healing things, and I'm unfolding, and I know that I'm, like, stepping into the next version of myself, and I'm excited about it. And a part of me wants to share everything on Instagram. But when I think about it, it's like, it doesn't feel right. Like, I don't have to, there's things that need to integrate. There's things that need to be private, and, maybe I'll share about it later. Maybe I won't, but, just really, like, honoring, if I'm not not forcing, having to do anything because I think that's what people should do. Or I think that, oh my God, this is such great content, I'm going to share it so that I get another 10,000 followers, or whatever motivates people. I'm really just like, all of that extra energy I need. So I'm learning to flow, and I'm learning not to, if there's any resistance, or if there's any, like, feeling behind it, I'm just like, oh, let it go. I'd rather be present with my daughter, and I'd rather really take care of myself. So that's kind of in the mode I'm in right now, which I haven't been in for 6-7 years. So it feels really good.
No, amazing. Yeah, there's so many bells and whistles and distractions, isn't it? Especially when it comes to having a business and social media. And I do wonder how much it all serves anyway. And I've even found in my own life that it's very tempting to lean into those things, because you then get distracted of some of the things that are wanting to get your attention to actually sit with and be with. And even in this game, or the spiritual context, we can bypass and use spirituality to actually bypass the very things that we need to address or sit with and trust and lean into,
Totally.
which is so common.
Yeah. And that's what I feel. I feel like I woke up, in January, and I was like, wow, I am a master bypasser, because I have been surviving and, like, dealing with all sorts of craziness for the last, 4 years or whatever. And I've grown, of course, and I've learned. But what I haven't allowed myself to do is really feel and sit long enough to and take care of myself so that the truth and the feelings and the grief and the whatever these emotions are that I've kind of I'm a master at like kind of like you talk about Kundalini. I was talking with a friend of mine who's a healer, and she's like, your heart is so closed, and there's like some heavy stuff and some trauma stuff but I've become such a master that like the energy just goes up and kind of around it. But like I need to like feel and be and sit, and slow down and stop doing so much, so that I can crack open so that the energy can go straight up, and then you're just in a whole another kind of frequency and power.
Yeah.
But right now it's just like so disjointed because it's bypassing. It's literally
Yeah.
bypassing. So I'm that's what I'm exactly what I'm focusing on.
Yeah. Incredible. And I'm just thinking of everyone listening. What would your practices or space, what does that look like today to allow self-care and nurture? Because I do find people don't even know, well, how do I self-care and nurture? What does that mean?
Yeah. Um, it's weird. I mean, once I'm like in the work, things just flow, and the opportunities come up, and and then I quickly feel into it. I'm like, yes, this is something I want to do, um, and I think for many years I didn't allow myself to do that because my husband's very busy, and his life commanded a lot of my time, and I would travel a lot for his work, and I didn't put myself first. And then of course I have a child who's a year older than your daughter, and of course you're putting the child first. So I've just been second, third, fourth, fifth, in the world. So it starts with me putting me first and knowing that carving out whatever time I can to get resourced and refill my cup and do the things that inspire me, which is like read a book. For so long, for the last few years, like I haven't had time to like even read new information. It was just like on a hamster wheel. So just reading and being in nature and playing, just playful art, creativity, like not doing things to be productive. Like I lost that, so that stuff just like, it just fans your flames, and it feeds your energy. So doing more things that feed me, and putting me first. But I'm going to go to Dr. Joe Dispenza's advanced week long in June, which, we've been friends since I did the film, and he's always asking me to come. And now I'm like, okay, I'm coming.
Have you not done one yet?
I haven't done one. Have you?
Yeah. I actually spent a week with Joe in Costa Rica back in, 2017, I think it was.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, that'll get things moving.
Okay, good. Any advice?
Keep doing what you're doing for sure.
Yeah.
Let go of expectations. It's a lot. Like when I kind of crossed paths with Joe, he wasn't as well known as he is now. I think even before the documentary, I think I explored his work back in all that time when I had the Kundalini awakening, and I'd been leaning into sound. Sound was a big component for me to move energy. It really was around about 2014. So I mean, there's a lot of people there now. That's all I know. Like,
Yeah,
it's a big crowd.
that's
Which is
why
a
I've
very
kind of
different
avoided it.
experience.
Yeah, because I'm not a big crowd person,
Yeah.
but I also just feel like, the field is one such that, the transformation where two or more are gathered, or in this case, like 1,200 are gathered, the field can really facilitate like deeper work. And I know his work has gotten a lot deeper. So I'm excited to just have that time to myself. And
Yeah. No, I think it's powerful. Like we work in groups of 32 to 34. There's three of us facilitators, and we hold people for 3 or 5 nights. And it's incredible what group consciousness can do, and the emergent themes that come out of when you're held in a space together and people feel safe and they can lean in and surrender. Nothing beats it, I think, personally.
Yeah, totally.
Hence why I do it.
Yeah. And that's what we need right now, right? We need the collective to come together in an intentional way and in a, um, loving way, just to find those groups of people to impact the field and create a new
Yeah,
consciousness. Yeah.
without a doubt. Are you optimistic? Like after everything we've all gone through the last kind of 3-4 years and
I
coming out the
am.
other side?
Maybe it's a fault of mine, but I'm a total, eternal optimist. I also believe that, like, breakdown before breakthrough. I just feel like it's Peter Crone, my friend, said the other day on a podcast, like it's like the birth canal, or the cocoon, right? It's messy and there's like goo and blood and it's painful and it's suffocating and it's claustrophobic, but you're in between worlds. You're pushing out some like a new paradigm, a new manifestation, and I feel like we're in that dark, disgusting period that's like really challenging, but that it's that pressure to kind of alchemize a new future, or not, and we all go away and we start over and hit the reset button, and that's fine too, but yeah, I just have to be. I kind of just sit back a lot of the times and just am like, this is a bad movie. Like, we're watching a really bad movie.
Yeah. But what's the alternative, right?
What's the alternative?
Yeah. I mean, you get what you focus on. And I'm a huge believer in that. And the one thing I kind of lean into is just to put my energy into what is going to support and help us move along. Because if we keep pushing against what's there, we're just manifesting more of what's there.
Totally.
But but sometimes it can feel, if we're not doing that, it feels wrong.
Right.
As you're not doing anything about it, kind of thing. But
I know. Marianne Williamson told me the other day, she said, if you have a child under 5, you have a pass to not be an activist, because she said for so many years I was so focused on the external and fighting and resisting and like having that energy, and I was missing out on some of my children at their most beautiful age, but also like my children are just being programmed with that. So I think there's that truth of like, rather than and of course, like, there's going to be things that come up, especially if it's directly affecting our children. Like, we're going to be mama and papa bear and we're going to fight. Right. But in the general sense of things, like, ever since she said that, I'm just like, there's so much to fight for, but for me, I'm just like, I'm just going to focus on being the healthiest, most vibrant, most centered, most loving, most forgiving. I'm focused on healing myself now, because she's 4. So I have another year of the get out of activism free card. And then, and then you show up, and just like you said, with your groups, it's like, rather than going out and fighting, and that's wonderful for people, and that's going to be a lot of people's missions, and there's going to be times in our life that we do that. But you're creating something, you're creating a field, you're creating a community, you're creating healing for people. And like, I really do believe, like, be the change you wish to see in the world. So the more of us that are doing this kind of work on ourselves and facilitating for others, high tide lifts all boats and things shift, under our nose.
Beautiful. I have to ask you one topic before we wrap things up, and that is parenting and conscious parenting. And what has being a parent taught you so far? Because, boy, it's beautiful, but it's like, wow, it highlights so many things within myself that I needed to work on, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, right? I think when I was pregnant, it was just this natural inclination to like, oh, I got to clean up. I got to do some housekeeping of my emotional and mental affairs, because I don't want to pass these things down to my child. So there was like some real rapid housekeeping and cleanup there and healing. And then as, they become, it's just such a good mirror and reminder. And like, we can't get away with our normal bullshit. We have to practice what we preach, because our children are just little sponges right now. And I'm going to do my best not to kind of pass on these unconscious habits and beliefs and things that I got passed down to me, and that I'm unpacking. And at the same time, not put pressure on myself to be perfect, because regardless of if we're the perfect conscious parent, like that little soul, your little daughter's soul, my little daughter's soul, came in with their own journey, with their own lessons that they chose to learn in this lifetime. And there's going to be stuff to unpack, whether you screw them up or not, so you do your best. And I'm just using her as a mirror to constantly check myself, because we're clever, we're intellectual, we get away with shit, and I think that they don't let us do that anymore. And it's a really beautiful thing, because it's just such a powerful mirror back to ourselves of what we need to still kind of heal and address.
Yeah, it's definitely a dance between being hard on yourself and being loving on yourself, and like you say, doing your best, doing
Yeah.
your best. I always remember Wayne Dyer speaking about about your cup and filling your cup up first to ensure then if it was sitting on a saucer, it would then overflow, and then everyone that really matters around you can have enough to drink on. And you've kind of lent into that already about your self healing. How important do you feel that is? Because as parents, we always lose ourselves and put ourselves last,
Yeah.
and it feels almost impossible to get back to actually putting ourselves first.
I know. I feel a little not guilty, but I feel like it's a little unfair for me to speak on this, because I have resources. I have a nanny. I have so much help that I'm afforded the luxury and the privilege to have time to be able to create time to take care of myself and meditate. And like people in survival mode and poverty, like they don't have that opportunity. They're just doing the best they can. They're working two jobs. And so it's like, in theory, it's absolutely correct. And I'm seeing it with me, and I'm trusting. And also, like, me taking care of myself and modeling that for my daughter. Like, we have our morning routine, and now she drinks lemon water in the morning because mama drinks lemon water in the morning. And so she knows that I have my morning routine that sometimes I don't always get to, but I'd like to meditate and I'd like to journal, and then I make her breakfast, and it happens maybe 3 out of 7 days a week. But she's learning that these things are important to mom. And not only does she respect that and like want to support me, but I know that in the future, she's going to feel validated and the worth to do what she needs to do in the morning or the afternoon, whatever. So all of that to say, I think it's so important. And for people listening that are in survival mode, it's like, maybe you're starting out with 20 minutes, but that's why we need to get back to this village concept and community. We're not meant to do this on our own. We need the village. We need our community to help us with our kids so that we're able to take care of ourselves. And that's kind of what's happened. Society is isolating us more and more. And that's why people are sick and in survival mode. So I would just encourage people that are in survival mode, and it's like, oh, easy for you to say, I don't have time or the ability to fill my cup. That's when we lean in and ask for help with a family member, a neighbor, a community. Just I need 30 minutes of the day just to get silent, or to take a nap, or to refill my cup, and lean into the village.
Yeah, beautiful. It's once we've set the intention to change, I think things will slowly start to move in that direction. But we've almost got to make up our mind and go, okay, enough. Something has to give here, and then the way appears.
Totally.
But sadly, we hold on to it for far too long half
Yeah.
the time, don't we?
We
Yeah.
do.
Last question to wrap up the podcast, Kelly, and that is, we've covered a lot of ground today, but is there anything you'd love to leave the listeners to ponder on?
Ooh, that's a good one. This is just the first thing that came to my mind. I think so often I'm a big manifester. I love playing with using our imagination. Like, I think I learned this from The Secret, and everybody has their opinions about The Secret. But one I practiced, I took away from The Secret, was gratitude journaling and acting as if you already had what you were desiring. So, like, writing in your journal, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have the man of my dreams, or 2 healthy babies, or a promotion at my job, whatever it is. And you just write that, and at first it feels silly, but you're just practicing. And what you're doing is, as you start to use your imagination and feeling the feelings of gratitude of the thing already being a reality, that's what kind of shifts your frequency. And it really works. Like, it really works. And then you just have to let it go and trust in divine timing. It might take 8 days, it might take 8 years, but just do it, because the worst case that happens is you're flooding yourself with healthy, life affirming chemicals every day, gratitude and love and excitement and joy. But all of that to say, like, last night I was at dinner with my girlfriends, and I said, let's go around the table and be like, if I could snap my fingers, this is what I want. We don't ever fantasize as adults because we're all caught up in the how. And so, like, if someone's dealing with a relationship issue, or, all this fear around a breakup, or if someone is stuck in a job that they hate, it's like, if I could snap my fingers, then I would be doing this for a living and I would have all my needs met. If I could snap my fingers, I would, consciously uncouple from my wife, and we'd be so much healthier, but co-parenting our son in the best way, and be best friends and supportive, and everything is amicable, blah, blah, blah. And so I love that. If I could snap my fingers, and to, like, give yourself permission to fantasize, because then you get clear on, like, what you really want. And I believe that the universe is miraculous. And when you are in that mindset of using your imagination like a child, and Jesus said this, enter the kingdom of heaven through the, heart of a child, whatever that saying is. It's like, we need that playfulness, we need that fantasy, we need to use our imagination to get clear on what we want, to, share it with the people that you love that will support that vision, and just get clear. Just even vocalizing or writing it down, what you desire, gets you clear. And then you start to see, okay, what are the beliefs, the negative beliefs about myself, the limiting beliefs that are blocking me from thinking that I can have that. It's totally possible. We live in a world of infinite possibility. So that's all I say. Like, play with that, with your friends, with your closest friends, with your partner, because why not? Like, we all deserve it. You deserve if I could snap my fingers then.
Beautiful. What's next for you? Then you're taking a sabbatical, you're create space for yourself, and what's anything on the horizon, or you're just going to continue to be for a while?
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to uncover. I know that I've just been really called to be creative, whether it's writing or writing songs and learning the guitar. Like, I just really want to, I think that will be revealed, maybe at the meditation retreat with Joe, but just over the next few months, as I'm, like, filling my cup, I feel like that new inspiration of what's next will be revealed. So we'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah. And the podcast, I noticed you still drop an episode here and there. Is that something you think you'll lean back into long term?
Yeah, I'm doing it like I said, like, I'm paying attention. I don't want to do anything that's stressing me out, so I do it kind of as I'm inspired. And then, of course, once you start doing them, then there's all these inbounds of, like, people wanting to do, and then I don't want to say no, and so then I just have to be really careful. But and then also the whole thing about doing it on my own is it didn't ever feel right to do advertising. Like, it just felt like an energy drain to vet the companies and do all the things. So I'm not doing it for money. So I really have to do it when I'm inspired, but I also feel like I love having those conversations. So
it's a beautiful thing. Like just being able to sit here today and reconnect with you and have this conversation. Like, I feel, for me, podcasting is such a privilege and has fed my soul in so many ways. Totally. And I know it reaches many people, and people come to our workshops or retreats and they listen and they tune in, and it continues a dialogue because it's not out there enough
Yeah.
in my view,
Yeah,
So
totally. It
yeah,
is a privilege. And it's been
yeah,
such a fun, it's been such an honor to be here today. Like, what a great conversation. We'll have fun to hang out.
yeah. And where if people want to follow you anywhere, where can we send them if we link to something below?
Yeah. I'm most active on Instagram. We have a
Okay.
Heal documentary page at Heal Documentary. And then my personal is at Kelly Gores. So you'll see a lot of pictures of my daughter there, I'm sure, Riley. And then anything about the film or the book, you can go to healdocumentary.com. And then, of course, the Heal podcast is on Spotify and iTunes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, all the links will be below for everyone anyway, wherever they're checking this out, and jump in. Kelly, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And I just want to acknowledge you for all that you do, and you're just an authentic, beautiful soul, and you've affected me from afar over the years and given me inspiration to lean in as well, seeing what you do and have created out there. So just yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Guy. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.